I'm Ed Kelly, editor of the Oklahoman. How will the Senate react now that President Obama has made his first nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court? Pondering that question are our D.C. All-Stars, Chris Castile, chief of the Oklahoman's Washington Bureau, and Mark Green, national editorial writer for the Oklahoman. Both men are frequent contributors here on News OK TV. Gentlemen, as you know, Judge Sonia Sotomayor has been confirmed twice by the Senate, first as a district judge and later as an appeals judge. Can we assume that she'll be confirmed for a third time, particularly in a Senate controlled by Democrats?
Yes, and I think you can't assume that she'll be confirmed unless something comes up that we just have no idea what it would be at this point. I mean, even before the president made this nomination, just immediately after Justice David Souter announced that he was going to retire, all kinds of groups began digging into the backgrounds of people who are considered potential nominees, and certainly Judge Sotomayor was considered a potential nominee. She's been considered a potential Supreme Court nominee since, excuse me, she was nominated for the appellate court by President Clinton in 1997. So I think the votes are there. Clearly the Democrats have a big majority, and there were Republicans, I believe 8 or 9, that voted for her confirmation in 1998. So again, I think how big of a battle before that confirmation remains to be seen. But I think she's a judge who spent 11 years on the appellate court, and I guess no huge controversies have erupted from her time on there. So it seemed to be a pretty easy confirmation, really.
Right. Yeah, I think that we were talking about the other day. Maybe her most notable decision was the one that ended the baseball strike back in the early '90s. So that circuit's a lot of highly technical federal cases, and obviously groups are pouring through the record to see if there's anything there that can be used to derail or slow up her nomination. But Republicans really are in a tight spot there because she's got a great life story, raised by her mom after her father died when she was very young. She's got diabetes, grew up with that. Really a self-made person coming out of the projects in the Bronx. And so Republicans, take that on. Plus, she's Hispanic. Take on that life story and her ethnicity and just the good feelings about her story is a difficult thing for them at a time when they're trying to get back on their feet nationally, where you're trying not to alienate independent voters and Hispanic voters nationwide. They're going to have to choose their battles with her during this nomination process very carefully. And
clearly, it was going to be a liberal pick, and I haven't read too many people haven't suggested that she's not a liberal. So it's sort of like, if not her, then which liberal would you go along with? So. I don't see how they're going to be able to make, the Republicans are going to be able to make a case, against her that would keep her from being confirmed.
We can assume then that there will be some sort of strategy, though, employed by the Republicans in the Senate in questioning her fitness for the Supreme Court.
Well, they're going to make some fights because they have to satisfy the political base and their own consciences, really. I guess their own ideologies. You can expect some questions about some comments that she's made, and people by now have probably seen the clips on television and the excerpts from her speeches and stuff where she's talked about the role of the appellate courts being to make policy, and that'll be aired out, and there's supporters will say that it was really an offhand comment, didn't really mean anything, and in fact the appellate courts do de facto make a lot of policy because of the issues that reach that court and then don't go any further. You probably also can expect some questions about a speech that she made out in California in 2002, I think it was, where she talked about her own ethnicity and gender being a special qualifier or offering a special vantage point to adjudicate the law, which kind of cuts against, detractors could say that cuts against the idea of blind justice. So she's going to be answering some questions about things like that.
Sure. I mean, there'll be all kinds of questions about, fairly routine case law, I think. But there, I think, as Mark said, both of the Oklahoma senators yesterday, both who probably are not inclined to support her, and in fact, as much as said so yesterday, but they both brought in this question of that relates, I think, to what Mark said about the comment she made about a Latina woman judging a case differently than a white man might. And Senator Tom Coburn and Senator Jim Inhofe both made comments yesterday saying that they really would hope that you wouldn't have a nominee making legal decisions based on their personal history. So I think maybe under the umbrella of judicial temperament or judicial activism, whatever they choose to call it, there will be questions about those kinds of comments.
But at the end of the day, I think, as Chris said at the beginning, at the end of the day, I don't think any of these things is going to be much of a hiccup on our way to being confirmed to the court. I mean, there'll be some interesting discussions in the committee hearing, I think, about these issues. But you look at it and you just don't see anything really there that given the strength of the Republicans in the Senate, that's going to cause much of a problem, I don't think, for confirmation.
Okay, guys, thanks so much, Chris, Mark. For more on this story, stay here on News OK.